Continuing to read from A Mountain in Tibet, from page 228, Chapter 14, The Great Test. On 8th October 2013, I was on Holy Isle, working in the office of our Center for World Peace, when the phone rang. It was Tupten, Akon's personal secretary, and he was in tears. Akon Rinpoche has been killed, he said. I froze. Struggling to take in what I was hearing. Tupten, who had just taken a call from China, told me that Akon had been attacked by 3 men in his house in Chengdu, in the Sichuan province of China, where he was staying on his annual trip back to China and the Tibetan Autonomous Region. He and Loga, our nephew with whom he had been traveling, as well as an attendant Lama from Dolma Lakan, had all been murdered. I finished the call in a state of numbness. For a moment, as I sat and contemplated the fact that the world no longer contained my living, breathing brother, I felt nothing at all. I was briefly frightened that the news would overwhelm me, but seconds later I knew that it would not. I felt my mind relax. I walked out of the building. I needed to be outside and alone. When I looked up, I saw a massive pillar of rainbow-colored light coming out of the sea and reaching into the sky above me. It is usual for such natural phenomena to occur when a bodhisattva is born and when he dies. So I took the pillar of light as an auspicious sign. It gave me comfort and focus as I exerted all my ability to remain absolutely calm and in this present moment. My brother had left this life. Over the course of my lifetime, he had been like a mother, father, teacher, sponsor, protector, and latterly, best friend. He was the central pillar of my life, the person I relied on and loved most in the whole world. Now he was gone. Had I learned enough from him to manage without him? I remember thinking straight away that I could not falter, because there was going to be an enormous amount to do. Akon Rinpoche was beloved by so many people around the world whose lives he had touched. He had been a key figure in the spread of Tibetan Buddhism throughout the West, and lately he had become famous for his exceptional contribution to spiritual life and charitable work. There would be an immense outpouring of grief. I was absolutely determined that I would do everything in my power to contain that grief, to support people, and to set about honoring the legacy of my brother. But, of course, I was myself in shock. My initial thought was to tell nobody what had happened until I got back to Samiling and had some time to think. I returned to the office, told people that I needed to leave but didn't explain why, and then called Ani Lamo, my personal assistant of many years' standing. I asked her to drive up from the monastery and pick me up from the ferry terminal in Ardrossen harbor. When we met, she suggested we go for lunch before driving back, and feeling distracted, I agreed. I found I had no appetite, which is most unlike me. In the car, I could no longer contain the shocking news. Poor Ani Lama was absolutely stunned when I told her, and the shock of it hit me again. My brother and 2 other innocent people had been murdered. How had this unthinkable act occurred? It took a while for us to piece together the full story. But what seems to have happened is that a man called Tupten Kunsal, a monk and master craftsman who had spent 5 years at Samiling creating statues and other fine works, had come to see Akon several times in Chengdu about a grievance over money. He claimed he had not received adequate payment for the work he had carried out, which was absolutely not the case. Knowing that Akong had brought money with him for various Rakpa projects, he demanded an additional large sum. The first time Thupten Kunsel came, Akong heard him out and then gave him almost £1,000 for urgent medical treatment because Thupten Kunsel looked so distressed. Akong explained that this was his own money and that the rest of the funds belonged to Rakpa, so there was no way he would hand them over, since they were not his to give. Thupten Kunsel came back the next day with 2 relatives and made another demand, which Akong refused. On 8 October, the 3 men came back again, armed with knives. There were 4 people staying in the flat that day: Akong, Loga, the attendant from Dolma Lakan, and a woman who Akong told to leave as soon as the 3 agitated men arrived. A row broke out, and Thupten Kunsel and one of his relatives began to attack Akong, who seems to have offered no resistance. Loga and the other monk threw themselves in front of my brother and were themselves fatally attacked. My brother received more than 40 stab wounds. The 3 assailants then ransacked the room looking for valuables and ran off when they were disturbed. The police were called, and they found and detained the attackers very quickly. All 3 confessed to their part in the crime. On the day I found out he was dead, I knew nothing of all this, but I knew that a great test had come, and that I needed to rise to the challenge. By the time Ani Lamo and I arrived back at Samiling, I had decided to call a meeting of the entire community later that afternoon. I spoke with Akong's wife, Yangchen, who had heard the news via a relative in China. She preferred to stay at home in Dumfries with the children. Ani Lamo and I rang as many people as we could, told them what had happened, and asked them to come. So by early evening, Sammy Ling was full of people, milling around as if in a dream, struggling to fathom what had happened. Many of them were in tears. Others could not speak. For those of us who believe in karma and reincarnation, there is the great comfort of knowing that death does not mean the end of an individual consciousness. But that doesn't mean that we are immune to shock, sadness, and grief at a loved one's passing. I felt that my first responsibility was to help people to apply everything they had learned through their practice in order to manage their reaction to the event. Given its extremity, this would not be easy. A Buddhist monk, a man many of us had known and liked, had broken the most universal of all precepts, that against killing a fellow human being. How could we respond to this? Many people struggled to believe that it was possible. At this point, all I could hang on to was the great example that Akon had left us. So when I stood up to speak, I focused on that. We were standing in the place that represented Akon's extraordinary vision, I said. The building and all of us were here because of him. He had now left us for a while, but he would return. As I was speaking, in that very moment, I had a very strong sense that when he did return, he would not be wandering around in old clothes, pitching in on the building site and clearing the drains. He would be a monk, highly educated, and an even greater teacher. This prospect made my heart joyful. Continuing from page 228, from a mountain in Tibet.
Now, that day Lama Yeshe's talking about, I saw that rainbow. It was a very unusual one. It lasted all day. And I knew there was something strange about it, but I couldn't figure out what it was. It was very unusual.
We were here when he got the news.
Yeah. Yes. So I didn't know. I didn't know anything about it at that time. So I walked him down to the boat.
We did it together, didn't we?
I walked down to the boat, and I think Lama Rinchen was there too, and probably a few others, because usually he gets a send off, you know.
Yes.
So a few people there to send them off. And well, I think that day I went off on a later boat and went to Brodick, and the rainbow was still there.
Yes.
Very broad and strong. Very big one, unusual.
And it lasted for more than one day as well.
Yeah.
We saw the rainbow the following day and subsequent days.
So it was a while after that that we're sitting in the dining room, and Annie Sheriff came in and told us what happened. But so we're kind of shocked and hard to take it in.
Yes.
I didn't think that could actually happen.
Yeah, because Lama Yeshe Rinpoche had been so calm and peaceful and not shared the information, we were not expecting anything like that on that day.
Yeah. Yes, so it was a bit of a shock. It was hard. It was hard to take in.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
We never could have dreamed it would happen.
Yeah. I didn't think it would happen. It did. That's where part of the shock came. You thought, no, that could possibly happen, and then it did. You know.
Yes.
Yes, and I didn't know the full details. It must have been quite a lot of stabbing.
When we just read this section of the book, we've just now learned some details that we didn't know about at the time. So we're processing that as we reflect on it. And we hadn't heard some of these details until today.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So good. So Rinpoche actually knew what was happening, because he told that young girl to leave.
He knew the situation was
Yeah.
very, very
Grave.
unsettled.
Yeah. I think he phoned up the police, I think.
He may well have done. He always had a phone on him.
For the first time coming, because he was picking things up from them. We were talking. This was the first time he came.
Yes.
So he had to prepared. That's how they got caught, you know. So it was. I knew how they thought they could get away with it, you know.
Well, it wasn't clear thinking, was it?
He's more or less gave himself away, going back 3 times and been threatening, you know. That was a sign, you know. He knew something was about to happen, so you know, he would watch out for that happening, you know, by then phoning up the police, and they caught him, yeah.
Yes.
So they must have been pretty angry when stabbed over 40 times.
Yes.
There must have been a lot of anger,
yes.
you know, in them. Anger that's take them to the hell realms.
And to have killed those additional people as well.
That's right. Innocent people.
Who were trying to protect Rinpoche.
Yeah. Yeah. So Lama used to have to get back to Summerling and give the news out to everybody.
Yes.
You know. Then Annie Lama must have phoned up Matt and Cherub to tell her up here, you know.
Yes.
I assume anyway.
Now, isn't it amazing how Lama Yeshe Rinpoche described his internal state and the different stages of it? He had such clarity about what was going on inside of him while it was happening. And he was able to tap into such profound calm.
So everybody at Savvy Lane would be wondering about in a daze.
Shock,
you know.
the horror of it.
Yeah, struck them, it realized. And of course, as far as I know, Rinpoche had a premonition that it was going to happen. You know?
I know we've been saying prayers for him.
Yeah.
There were concerns.
Yeah.
Concerns about his health and well-being.
Yeah. And they must have been very, very, very greedy. They wanted more and more money. Money was going to help the clinics and hungry people, and they were going to take it for themselves, you know. That was very bad motive in their mind too. Between that, all that's going to take people into the like advisory hell. You know. That's why people would pray for them, even though they'd done it, they'd pray for them because they know what they're going to go through. They're going to go through something that will be really terrible.
Yes. Well, all the teachers, when they heard about it, and all the high Rinpoches, they were all encouraging everyone involved to not go to hatred and not go to anger back.
Yeah.
To not stir up more of the same.
Yeah.
To not have revenge.
That's right.
So that's why it's a great test.
Yeah.
It's a test for all of us.
Yeah. So everybody just went numb and into shock, and that was it, you know.
Yes. And then something penetrated that place for all of us, which was Rinpoche's example.
Yeah.
And the courage that he had to face those events and to go through them without resisting them. And also his example that we still have in front of us and we're still working towards.
As the Kamapa said, he's a very brave man, he said.
Yes.
Very brave man, he said.
Yes.
That would be a big shock for his family too, you know.
Yes. Now Lama Yeshe Rinpoche was able to acknowledge what was going on for himself and to not push it away and not judge it, but just allow it to be. And also find the depths of his practice and the depths of his calmness and his capacity to support everyone else who might not be as well equipped to handle the shock and all of the details that accompanied the event.
Yeah.
And all the feelings that were brought into our minds and into our emotions, into our bodies
Yes.
at that time.
It was such a big shock for everybody. It took somebody strong like Lama Yeshe to carry him through it.
That's right.
Through it. Yeah.
That's right.